Marcus Kane had never planned to purchase a starcraft, and he certainly hadn't expected to acquire one harboring an armed violet-skinned alien occupant. What began as an impulsive joke, a midnight bidding session fueled by boredom and a half-hearted wager on what appeared to be abandoned spacecraft wreckage, had spiraled into something far more complex. The auction listing remained deliberately vague, the photographs blurry, yet one detail caught his attention: a fully operational battlecruiser priced at merely 500 credits. It should have been fraudulent. Instead, it became something infinitely worse. The vessel, now legally registered under his ownership, rested in a poorly illuminated shipyard on the periphery of Nexus Station, a settlement best characterized as marginally legitimate. Various mechanics wandered about, the type who avoided inquiries provided you reciprocated their discretion. The hull bore extensive damage, decorated with weathered emblems that had lost their original significance. Marcus anticipated corrosion, malfunctioning systems, perhaps some vermin. He hadn't anticipated stepping aboard only to feel a weapon pressed against his neck. An energy blade hummed in the vessel's dim emergency illumination, its edge wavering with volatile power. One miscalculation would slice through tissue like fabric. Marcus froze, his breathing halting. The woman wielding it stood tall, athletic, and unmistakably extraterrestrial. Her rich violet skin gleamed under the fluctuating cabin lights, while her platinum-white hair framed features that were both beautiful and dangerous: pronounced cheekbones, generous lips, and penetrating golden eyes that burned like liquid fire. She wasn't equipped for battle, wearing merely a form-fitting vest and relaxed utility pants, yet everything about her projected menace: her stance, her steady grip on the weapon, the way her muscles coiled like springs ready to release. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice melodious yet edged with hostility. Marcus swallowed, raising his hands. "The owner?" Her eyes narrowed. "Incorrect," she replied flatly. Marcus hesitated, then slowly activated his wrist display, bringing up the auction confirmation. The glowing text flickered in the dim space. Purchase verified. Final bid, 500 credits. Owner, Marcus Kane. Her gaze flicked to the display, then returned to him. She didn't lower the weapon. "You're joking," she muttered. "Trust me, I wish I were." The blade remained steady for another moment. Marcus wondered if this would be his end, murdered aboard a ship he legally owned by a woman who vehemently disagreed with that fact. Then, with an exasperated sigh, she withdrew the weapon and tossed it onto the nearest console. "Unbelievable," she muttered, running fingers through her hair. "They actually auctioned it." Marcus exhaled, relief flooding through him. "Excellent. So, who are you?" She folded her arms, studying him with an unreadable expression. "Kira. Last name isn't your concern." "Fair enough." Marcus cautiously lowered his hands, taking a step back to create distance between them. "All right, Kira not. That I'm ungrateful for surviving, but could you explain why I nearly had my throat severed upon boarding my newly acquired vessel?" Her golden eyes gleamed. "Because it isn't your newly acquired vessel." He frowned, gesturing toward the battered walls. Legally speaking," Kira interrupted, "this ship was never meant for auction." Something in her tone made the hair on his arms rise. Marcus glanced around, truly observing the ship for the first time. The interior was aged but too well maintained to be abandoned. The walls bore faint scorch marks, the kind left by energy weapons. A dented panel had been roughly welded shut, and the floor plating showed deep scratches as if something heavy had been dragged across it. This wasn't some forgotten relic. This ship had a violent history. "What exactly did I purchase?" Marcus asked slowly. Kira's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Trouble." That wasn't what he wanted to hear. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "All right, Let's start simple. What type of ship is this? Kira tapped several buttons on the nearby console. A holographic schematic flickered to life, displaying a sleek, heavily modified battlecruiser. She's a Phantom-class raider, Kira said, her tone oddly reverent. Fast armored, equipped for both stealth and heavy combat. Designed for military operations and deep space assault tactics. She turned to him. A ship like this doesn't simply vanish. If it ended up at auction, someone either wanted it gone or didn't realize what they possessed. Marcus stared at the display. So why was it only 500 credits? Kira snorted. Because no sane person would bid on something this cursed. That didn't improve his confidence. He crossed his arms. So what's wrong with it? Kira's expression darkened. For starters, it carries a bounty. Marcus's stomach dropped. How severe? She tapped the console again. A new display flickered up. Marcus cursed. A galaxy-wide warrant was attached to the ship's identification code, flagged by multiple factions. Some were pirate syndicates. Others were legitimate military forces. You've got to be kidding me, he muttered. They sold me a ship that's actively hunted. Kira shrugged. Congratulations. You're now a wanted man, he groaned. I should have just bought a used transport like a normal person. She smirked. Would have been less exciting. Marcus shot her a look. How are you so calm about this? Because I knew what this ship was before you arrived, she said, leaning against the console. I've been living aboard it for the past 3 years. He blinked. You've been squatting here? I've been keeping it from the wrong hands. Marcus pinched the bridge of his nose. And now those hands are mine. Kira's expression softened slightly. Look, I understand. You didn't sign up for this. Understatement of the year. But now that you have it, she continued, you have a choice. Walk away, sell it for scrap, try to pretend you were never involved. Marcus narrowed his eyes. Or, she stepped closer, her golden gaze locking onto his. This time there was no threat behind it, just something deeper, calculating. Or, she said, you keep it, and I help you survive. He studied her, his mind racing. This ship was dangerous. Keeping it meant dodging bounty hunters, criminals, and probably worse. But if it was as powerful as she claimed, if it had been worth hunting down, then maybe, just maybe, it was worth keeping Dot and Kira. She wasn't telling him everything. But one thing was clear. She knew this ship inside and out. Marcus exhaled slowly. If I say yes, what's in it for you? A ghost of a smile touched her lips. I get to keep flying. He considered that, considered her, then finally held out his hand. All right, Kira, let's make a deal. She eyed him for a long moment, then took his hand. And just like that, Marcus Kane made the best-worst decision of his life. Marcus Kane had struck a bargain with an armed, possibly dangerous, and definitely untrustworthy violet-skinned alien woman. This was not the wisest decision of his life, he realized that within 10 minutes of sharing the ship's cockpit with Kira. She sat in the pilot's chair like she belonged there, boots propped against the console, fingers drumming idly against the armrest. Meanwhile, Marcus was still trying to process the absolute disaster he had walked into. So, he said, breaking. The silence. Mind telling me what exactly I just committed to? Kira tilted her head, golden eyes gleaming. You mean aside from inheriting a stolen, bounty-marked warship and making yourself a target for half the galaxy? He exhaled sharply. Yeah, aside from that. She studied him for a moment as if deciding how much to share. Then, with a slow stretch, she sat forward and tapped a command into the console. The holographic display flickered to life again, but this time instead of ship schematics, it pulled up a list of names. Marcus's gut clenched. Bounties. Dozens of them, all flagged under one ship, his ship. This cruiser belonged to the Crimson Vanguard, Kira said. They were an elite strike force ex-military turned mercenary. The kind that took jobs no one else would. She gestured at the bounty list. Until someone decided to eliminate them. Marcus scanned the names. Most were crossed out. Let me guess, he said, frowning, that someone wasn't law enforcement. Kira smirked. Law enforcement? No, but people with far more money and power? Absolutely. He looked at her. And you? The smirk faded. I was their pilot, one of the last survivors. That explained a lot: the confidence, the combat instincts, the way she had treated the ship like a home rather than an abandoned wreck. You're saying everyone who piloted this thing before me is dead? He asked. Mostly, she admitted. A few are missing. A few ran, but anyone who stayed with the ship ... They didn't last long. Marcus rubbed his face, frustration bubbling up. And this wonderful detail wasn't in the auction listing because the people who sold it were either ignorant or trying to dispose of a problem, Kira said. Likely both, he groaned. Fantastic. She watched him, a curious tilt to her head. You could still walk away. Sell it for scrap. Cut your losses before they start cutting you. Marcus let out a dry laugh. And let someone else buy this ship and die instead? Her expression shifted, something subtle, unreadable. Respect, maybe. You're different from the usual idiots who get caught up in things like this, she said. Gee, thanks, he muttered. He turned back to the console, fingers hovering over the navigation controls. He had no idea where to go from here. Selling the ship wasn't an option keeping, it meant inheriting all the problems that came with it. And Kira ... that was the real wild card, wasn't it? All right, he said, leaning back. Tell me something. You've been here for 3 years. If you wanted to keep this ship so badly, why didn't you just claim ownership? Kira sighed, running a hand through her platinum hair. Because it was safer being a ghost. Safer for who? Her golden eyes met his. Me, and now you. The weight behind those words sank into him. Marcus had thought he was just some unlucky guy who bought the wrong ship. But Kira ... She had been hiding on it. That meant whoever was after her wasn't just dangerous, they were still looking. And now, thanks to his idiotic impulse buy, they'd be looking for him too. Great, he muttered. So where does that leave us? Kira pushed off the chair and stretched. Depends. How good are you at flying? Marcus narrowed his eyes. Why? She nodded toward the console, where a flashing red alert had just appeared. Incoming transmission. Unauthorized scan detected. Position compromised. Marcus's stomach dropped. Someone had just found them. Marcus knew something was wrong the moment. He woke up. The air smelled different, warm, sweet, and dangerously intoxicating. It clung to the inside of his lungs like spiced honey, sending an uninvited shiver down his spine. His body felt unusually tense, yet somehow too relaxed at the same time. Then he saw her. Kira stood near the ship's small refresher unit, hair still damp from a shower, strands curling against her violet skin. She wore one of her usual sleeveless tops, but this time it clung differently, softer, looser, revealing just enough to make his brain misfire, and she smelled like vanilla and something else, something richer, headier. Marcus sat up too fast. Are you wearing perfume? Kira glanced over, amused. No. He frowned, rubbing the back of his neck. The sensation didn't fade. Then why does the entire room smell like ... His brain connected the pieces together. His gaze snapped to hers. Wait. Is this you? Kira's lips curved. It's a pheromone. She stepped forward and the scent intensified, wrapping around him like invisible silk. Most species find it overwhelming. Marcus swallowed, pulse spiking. Ha, joke's on you, I think it's kind of nice. Her golden eyes darkened with something unreadable. Is that so? He regretted saying it instantly. Kira was already predatory on a normal day, but now... Now she looked interested. She took another step forward, and every hair on Marcus's arm stood on end. Her voice dropped lower. Humans have a strong response to scent, don't they? His throat went dry. I wouldn't say strong. She was close now, the heat from her skin radiating in the narrow space between them. Marcus's heart thundered in his chest. She murmured. Then she leaned in, her lips brushing just below his jaw. Marcus sucked in a sharp breath, his entire body locked up, caught between fight, flight, and the very real possibility that he didn't want to do either. Kira's mouth curved against his skin. Interesting. Her hands pressed against his chest, warm fingers splaying over his shirt. The ship suddenly felt too small, the recycled air too thick. You're tense, she said, tilting her head as if studying a puzzle. Do I make you nervous? Yeah. Absolutely. 100% no, he said, voice cracking spectacularly. Kira chuckled, the sound wickedly pleased. Marcus gripped the bed frame, grounding himself. Is this some kind of test? He asked. She hummed. Maybe. And then she kissed him. The heat of it stole the breath from his lungs. Her lips were soft but insistent, parting just enough for him to taste warm spice and something uniquely hers. A low, satisfied sound rumbled from her throat as she pressed him back against the bed, her weight settling over his. Marcus's brain shut down completely. He should stop this, should ask questions, should figure out what the hell he'd just walked into. Instead, his hands found her waist, fingers sliding over smooth skin. Kira sighed against his mouth, her body shifting, pressing closer, the curve of her thigh slotting between his own. Stars, he muttered against her lips, dizzy from the scent. The heat, the fact that he was rapidly losing control of the situation. Kira pulled back just enough to smirk. What's wrong, Kane? Can't handle a little pheromone exposure? Little? He exhaled sharply. I think I'm hallucinating. Either that, or I'm about to make some very bad decisions. She laughed, a genuine, low, throaty sound that made his pulse jump again. Then, with agonizing slowness, she traced her finger up his chest, over his collarbone, to his throat. Marcus stiffened, not out of fear, but anticipation. Kira noticed. Her smile sharpened. Then, just as quickly as she'd started, she pulled away, rolling off him with an infuriating amount of control. Marcus nearly swore out loud. She stretched, feline and unbothered, then casually ran a hand through her hair. You're lucky I like you. Marcus groaned, scrubbing a hand down his face. That felt a lot more like torture than luck. She smirked. Aren't they the same thing sometimes? Marcus let his head fall back against the bed, trying to regulate his breathing. The air still smelled like her. His skin still buzzed where she'd touched him. This was going to be a problem. A very, very big problem. Marcus barely had time to recover from whatever the hell had just happened between him and Kira before the ship's warning klaxon screamed to life. The flashing red alert on the console pulsed like a heartbeat. Incoming transmission. Unauthorized scan detected. Kira was already on her feet, her teasing smirk replaced by sharp focus. She crossed the cockpit in 2 strides, fingers flying over the controls. Marcus forced himself to sit up, still a little dazed. Please tell me that means friendly welcome. Message and not someone's about to shoot at us. Kira's golden eyes flicked to his. Depends. How do you feel about bounty hunters? His stomach dropped. A second alert appeared. Unknown ship. Locking targeting systems, Marcus swore. Yeah, that's a no for me then. You might want to strap in, Kira said, voice unnervingly calm. She tapped a few more buttons, bringing up an external view of their pursuers, a sleek black and silver. Gunship loomed on the display, its design far too clean to belong to your average pirate. Marcus recognized it instantly. Helix Syndicate, he muttered. That's bad, Kira confirmed. Very bad. The Helix Syndicate weren't just bounty hunters. They were professionals. High-end mercenaries who never took a job unless it was worth an obscene amount of credits. If they were here, someone had paid a fortune to make sure neither he nor Kira walked away from this dot. Another alert flared. Weapon systems online. Target acquired. Marcus's heart slammed against his ribs. They're locking missiles. Kira smirked. Not for long. She punched the thrusters, and the ship roared to life beneath them. Marcus barely had time to grab his harness before the acceleration slammed him back against his seat. The ship lurched sideways, narrowly avoiding a streak of plasma fire that would have turned them into debris. The gunship's engines flared as it gave chase. Wait, are they shooting already? Marcus shouted, gripping the armrests. Aren't bounty hunters supposed to take people alive? Depends on the bounty, Kira said, twisting the controls. The ship rolled hard, dodging another barrage. If they think we're too much trouble, they might take the easy payout, which is blasting us into space dust. Exactly. Fantastic. Marcus glanced at the weapons console. Tell me we have something to fight back with. Plenty. Kira flipped a switch, and the row of concealed cannons slid out from the ship's hull. Marcus's eyes widened. I knew this thing had secrets, Kira grinned. Hold on tight. The ship bucked hard, and then she fired. Twin bursts of ion fire streaked through the void, slamming into the bounty hunter's shields. The enemy gunship veered sharply, struggling to regain its position. Kira didn't give them the chance. She pulled the ship into a tight spin, lining up the next shot. Marcus felt the energy build, the hum of the cannons growing as the ship's systems rerouted power. Kira, he warned, watching as a second target appeared on the sensors. She cursed. They brought backup. A second Helix vessel dropped out of warp bigger than the first. A heavily armored destroyer class. Marcus's stomach twisted. We can't take both of them. Kira didn't argue. Instead, she hit a sequence of controls that sent the ship into an impossible nosedive, skimming just above the surface of the nearby asteroid belt. New plan, she said. We run. Marcus held on as the ship dove into the chaos of tumbling rocks. Behind them, the Helix ships followed, dodging debris with expert precision. They were faster, but Kira was smarter. She skimmed between two massive asteroids with inches to spare, forcing their pursuers to pull up. One barely cleared it, but the second wasn't as lucky. A sickening crunch echoed through the comms as the larger destroyer clipped an asteroid. Spiraling out of control. One down, Kira muttered. Marcus glanced at the display. The smaller hunter ship was still right on their tail, matching every maneuver. Kira, he said, I need a few seconds to set up a warp jump. Marcus's gaze flicked. To the rear sensors. We don't have a few seconds. The gunship charged weapons. They were out of time. Without thinking, Marcus grabbed the targeting controls and fired. A missile streaked from their ship, heading straight for the enemy vessel. The Helix pilot, clearly. Skill dodged right at the last second. Exactly what Marcus had hoped for. The missile didn't hit the ship, it hit the asteroid directly above it. A massive chunk of rock broke loose, slamming into the Helix vessel before the pilot could react. The ship spun violently before disappearing in a flash of flaming debris. Marcus stared. Did I just... Kira blinked. You just won us a dogfight. A slow grin spread across Kira's face. Not bad, Kane. Maybe you're not entirely useless. Before he could come up with a sarcastic response, the warp drive engaged and the stars outside stretched into infinity. The ship jumped, and just like that, they were gone. The tension didn't fade until the ship settled back into normal space, safely away from bounty hunter territory. Marcus exhaled, running a hand through his hair. That was way too close. he said. Kira leaned back in her seat, arms crossed, still grinning. Adrenaline suits you. Yeah, I think I prefer being alive. She chuckled, then turned serious. You realize what this means, right? Marcus nodded. They didn't just stumble onto us. Someone put out a fresh bounty. Which means we need to figure out who and why, Kira said. Fast, Marcus met her gaze. And what if we don't like the answer? She smirked, her golden eyes gleaming. Then we make sure they don't like it either. The ship was quiet save for the faint hum of the engines and the soft whir of the cooling systems. Marcus sat at the dining booth, shoulders slumped, rolling one of his aching wrists in slow circles. His body protested after the high-speed chase through the asteroid belt, and his muscles still carried the strain of gripping the controls too tightly. He wasn't sure how much time had passed since they jumped to safety, but the weight of their narrow escape still pressed on his chest. The Helix Syndicate wouldn't give up that easily. They were professionals, and professionals hunted until the job was done. They weren't safe, not yet. A door slid open behind him. He felt Kira's presence before he turned, that warm, spiced scent curling into the air like invisible fingers. Vanilla, heat, something deeper. He didn't look right away. He knew if he did, his brain would stop working properly. When he finally glanced up, he saw her leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, watching him with that infuriating mix of amusement and curiosity. Her platinum hair was still damp, falling in loose waves against her violet skin. The dim ship lights cast shadows across her collarbone, highlighting the smooth planes of her shoulders. She had changed into a fresh tank top and loose cargo pants, but somehow she made even casual look predatory. His pulse kicked up before he could stop it. You're tense, she observed, tilting her head. It's making you slow. He exhaled through his nose, rolling his shoulders. Tends to happen when people try to kill me. Kira smirked, padding barefoot toward him. You did well today. Marcus arched a brow. Is that your version of a compliment? Take it however you want, she said, stopping just beside him. Then, without warning, she swung a leg over his lap and straddled him. His body went rigid. His fingers hovered near her waist, unsure whether to grab her or push her away. He? Said eloquently. What? Kira placed her hands against his chest, applying just enough pressure to make his muscles lock beneath her touch. Relax, she murmured, fingers trailing up to his shoulders. You need this, he swallowed, throat suddenly dry. Pretty sure this is against intergalactic pilot codes. She chuckled, low and throaty. Humans are so touch-starved. You act like basic physical relief is illegal. His pulse jumped at the way she said, relief. Marcus had been in combat, been thrown into life-threatening situations, but nothing compared to this. She worked her fingers into the knots along his shoulders, pressing firm, knowing exactly where to dig in. Her touch was confident, precise, and it sent heat spreading through his chest, coiling lower in ways he refused to acknowledge. You're so tight, she murmured, thumbs kneading deep. Yeah, no kidding, he said, voice strained. Maybe because someone made me dodge missiles for an hour. Kira leaned in slightly, lips brushing just below his ear. Or maybe, she murmured, it's something else. Something you think about all the time. His breath hitched. His hands itched to grip her hips, to pull her closer, but he forced them to stay still. She was doing this on purpose. The realization should have made him irritated. Instead, it made him want to see how far she was willing to go. You enjoy torturing me, don't you? He muttered. Kira smiled against his skin. A little. Then, in one deliberate motion, she rolled. Her hips just enough for him to feel the full weight of her body against his his breath caught. Her smirk deepened. Are you sure you're not enjoying this? She whispered. Marcus's restraint snapped. He gripped her waist, fingers pressing into smooth skin, pulling her closer than she'd probably intended. "Kira," he said, voice lower now, rougher. Tilted her head, golden eyes watching him like he was an equation she wanted to solve. "Are you asking me to stop?" She whispered. His heart slammed against his ribs. Not even a little. Marcus didn't answer with words. He kissed her. Kira sighed against his mouth, her fingers threading into his hair, nails scraping lightly against his scalp. The sensation sent heat pooling low in his stomach. Her lips parted slightly, allowing him deeper, tasting her warm, spiced, heady like a drug. Marcus lost himself in her. For the first time since stepping onto this cursed ship, nothing else existed. No bounties, no warships, no danger. Just her hands, her body, the way she moved against him with maddening precision. His fingers skimmed under her top, tracing the prison curve of her spine. Kira shuddered. He felt the way her breath hitched, the slight tremble that betrayed just how much she was holding back. So she wasn't as unaffected as she pretended. That changed things. Marcus broke the kiss, lips brushing the sensitive skin of her jaw. Her breathing was uneven now, her fingers tightening in his hair. "You always in control, Kira?" he murmured against her throat. She stiffened, just for a second. That second was enough. Marcus pulled back slightly, just enough to meet her gaze. Challenge flickered behind her golden eyes, but so did something else, something unspoken. Something dangerous. Kira exhaled slowly. Then, as quickly as she had started, she pulled away, slipping off his lap. Marcus nearly swore out loud. Kira stretched, infuriatingly calm, then ran a hand through her hair. "You're lucky I like you," she said. Voice amused, but her breath wasn't quite steady yet. Marcus leaned back, trying to get his own pulse under control. "That felt a lot more like torture than luck," she smirked. "Aren't they the same thing sometimes?" Marcus let his head fall back against the booth. The air still smelled like her. His body still buzzed from where she'd touched him. This was a problem. A very, very big problem. The silence between them stretched. Marcus sat at the edge of the cockpit, hands braced on his knees, trying to shake the lingering sensation of Kira's warmth, her scent, the weight of her body against his. She had pulled away like nothing had happened, like he wasn't still feeling her lips on his skin, like she hadn't left him hanging in a way that could only be described as cruel. But before he could even process that mess, reality came crashing. Back down. A shrill alert flared across the control panel. Incoming transmission. Encrypted origin. Kira, already in the co-pilot's chair, raised a brow. Someone wants to talk. Marcus exhaled, dragging a hand through his hair. "If this is another bounty hunter, I'm going to throw myself into space and make their job easier." She mused, tapping the console. "Let's hear it." The hologram projector flickered to life, revealing a masked figure, voice distorted through encryption. "Marcus Kane, Kira Vallis, you've made quite the mess." Marcus's stomach tightened. "Yeah, well," he muttered, crossing his arms. "Making messes is kind of a hobby." The figure ignored him, turning their attention to Kira. "You should have stayed buried. Now your past is coming to collect." Kira didn't flinch, but Marcus saw the shift, a slight tension in her jaw, the way her fingers curled against the armrest. He straightened. "Who the hell are you?" Marcus demanded. The masked figure tilted their head. "A friend, if you listen. A problem, if you don't." Marcus clenched his jaw. He was really tired of vague threats. "Great. That clears everything up." The figure continued. "That ship you're sitting in, it's not just some decommissioned raider. It carries something valuable, something powerful, and a lot of people want it back." Kira cut in. "Then why haven't they come for it themselves?" A pause. Then, "Because no one knows exactly where it is, until now. Thanks to your little stunt with the Helix Syndicate, Major faction knows that ship still exists. Marcus felt his pulse spike. So we painted a target on our backs. A big one, the figure confirmed. You have two options. Run and they will find you. Or sell the ship and let this be someone else's problem. Marcus's gut twisted. He glanced at Kira, expecting her to scoff, to argue, to do anything but sit in silence. But she was still too still. For the first time since he'd met her, he saw hesitation. That scared him more than the transmission. The masked figure spoke again. Think fast, Kane. Time isn't on your side. Then the transmission cut out. Silence filled the cockpit, thick and suffocating. Marcus turned to Kira. All right. What the hell aren't you telling me? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she leaned back, exhaling through her nose, gaze locked on the endless void of space beyond the VIEWPORT. Then, finally. They're right. We should sell it, Marcus stared. Excuse me? Kira met his eyes, expression unreadable. You didn't sign up for this. You bought the ship as a joke. You could take the money, get out, and never look over your shoulder again. His jaw tightened. And what about you? She hesitated just for a second. That's not your problem. Wrong answer? Marcus stood abruptly. Like hell it isn't. Kira's gaze flicked up, cautious. Kane, let me get this straight, he cut in, voice sharp. You dragged me into this, didn't tell me half of what was going on, and now you want me to just walk away? She didn't blink. Yes. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Not happening. Kira exhaled through her nose. You don't know what you're signing up for. Then tell me, Marcus challenged. For the first time, she looked conflicted. Then, finally, she spoke. The Crimson Vanguard, she said slowly, voice quieter now, wasn't just a mercenary crew. We took a contract we shouldn't have. A job to steal something from the Federation. Marcus frowned. The Federation? As in the most powerful military force in the galaxy? Kira nodded. And we succeeded. But we never got paid because before we could collect, someone started hunting us down, one by one. Something cold settled in Marcus's chest. Whatever we stole, Kira continued, it's still on this ship. And someone is willing to kill every last person who touched it. Marcus's breath came slower now. So that's why you never left, she nodded once. Because the second I step off this ship, I'm a dead woman. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, his mind racing. He could walk away. He could sell the ship and let someone else take the risk. But if he did, Kira wouldn't just disappear, she would die. The realization hit him harder than it should have. He exhaled sharply, shaking his head. Well, that settles it then. Kira narrowed her eyes. Settles what? He turned to the control panel, inputting new coordinates. We're keeping the ship. She stared. Kane. And, he continued, flicking switches with newfound purpose, we're going to figure out what's on board that's worth killing for. Kira hesitated. You don't have to do this. Marcus met her gaze. Yeah, he said, I do. She studied him, searching for something before finally exhaling. Then, slowly, she smirked. You really are a terrible decision-maker. Marcus grinned. And yet here we are. He locked in the jump coordinates. Where to? Kira asked. He leaned back, eyes gleaming. Let's go find out what we're worth dying for. The ship lurched forward, engines roaring as they jumped into the unknown. The ship lurched out of hyperspace, metal groaning as it settled into the vast emptiness of uncharted space. Marcus's hands hovered over the controls, his pulse steady. Despite the storm brewing in his mind, Kira sat beside him, her golden eyes scanning the dark void beyond the VIEWPORT. No planets, no stations, no signs of life. But the coordinates had led them here. Are you sure this is the place? Marcus asked, Frowning at the readings, Kira tapped the console, bringing up a faint signal, weak, fragmented, buried under layers of interference. "It's here," she said. "A hidden transmission, a message waiting to be found." Marcus swallowed. "Let's hear it." Kira activated the playback. The speakers crackled to life, distorting a voice that shouldn't exist anymore, a voice Kira recognized instantly. "Valis, if you're hearing this, I hope you're still breathing." Her breath caught. Marcus glanced at her. "You know him?" She nodded, too stunned to speak, because the voice belonged to Commander Devon Cross, leader of the Crimson Vanguard, a man who had been dead for 3 years. The message continued, laced with static. "They got to me first, but I left you a way out. The package is still on board, hidden where only you would think to look. But be careful, Kira, they don't just want what we stole. They want to erase anyone who's ever touched it." Kira's fingers clenched the edge of the console. Marcus leaned forward. "What package?" The transmission glitched, skipping ahead. "You were always the best of us, Valis. If anyone makes it out of this, it's you. Find it. Decide what to do with it." A pause, then softer. "And if you ever see Kane, tell him I was wrong about him." Marcus froze. The transmission cut off, leaving only the dull hum of the ship in its wake. Silence settled between them, heavy and charged with unanswered questions. Kira exhaled, pushing back from the console. "We need to find it, now," Marcus nodded, rising to his feet. "Agreed." The storage bay was cold, lit only by flickering emergency strips along the walls. Marcus had searched this place twice before, but whatever Cross had hidden, it wasn't obvious. Kira moved like she already knew where to go. She crossed to the back wall, kneeling beside a small maintenance panel he hadn't thought twice about. A few swift motions and the panel clicked open, revealing a reinforced lockbox. Marcus let out a breath. "How the hell did you know it was there?" Kira smirked faintly. "Because I installed it." She pulled the box free, fingers ghosting over its surface before she keyed in a sequence only she knew. A soft hiss of pressurized air escaped as the lid lifted. Inside, nestled in shock foam padding, lay a sealed data drive. Marcus frowned. "That's it." Kira shook her head. "No, that's everything." She lifted the drive carefully, turning it over. "This is what we stole. This is why the Crimson Vanguard was hunted down." Marcus crossed his arms. "Any guesses what's on it?" Her golden eyes met his. Only one way to find out. They returned to the cockpit. Tension thick in the air. Marcus plugged the drive into the ship's interface, and a holographic projection flared to life. Lines of Federation encryption scrolled across the screen, unraveling into classified reports, hidden transmissions, intercepted battle plans. And then the real secret, a list of names. Thousands of them. Marcus leaned in, scanning the records. His stomach sank. "These are civilians." Kira's jaw tightened. "Not just civilians." She tapped the screen, highlighting a phrase stamped across the files. "Federation experimental subjects." Marcus felt sick. They were running human experiments. Kira's voice was grim. "And killing anyone who got too close to the truth." That was the real reason the Crimson Vanguard had been erased, not for stealing money or weapons, but for stumbling onto evidence that could topple an empire. Marcus exhaled sharply. "This is why they want us dead," Kira nodded. "Because if this gets out, the Federation burns." A heavy silence followed. Then Marcus straightened. "So what do we do with it?" Kira hesitated. "We could sell it, get enough credits to disappear forever." He studied her. "But that's not what you want." She exhaled slowly. "No, it's not," Marcus smirked. "Then let's blow this thing wide open," Kira blinked. Then, for the first time in days, she really smiled, not the teasing, sharp-edged smirk, but something real. "Then we'd better find someone who can handle the fallout," she said. Marcus grinned. I know just the place. He turned back to the controls, setting a new course. For the first time since this mess started, they weren't running, they were going. Straight at the fire, the ship hummed beneath them, locked in for the jump. Marcus leaned back in his chair, exhaling. Kira watched him, something unreadable in her gaze. You could have left, she said quietly. You could have too, he pointed out. She smirked. Guess we're both idiots then. Yeah, he agreed. Silence stretched again, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable. Then Kira reached over, her fingers brushing his wrist, a silent acknowledgement. Marcus turned his hand over, catching hers gently in his own. Her golden eyes softened. You sure about this? She asked. Marcus's grip tightened. Yeah, he said. I'm sure. The ship jumped into hyperspace, carrying them toward whatever future they had just chosen. And this time, they were in it together.